This episode is brought to you by the Regional Air Quality Council. Because it's summertime and everyone needs to do their part. So ditch your commute and work from home to reduce ground level ozone. Or maybe it's time to take advantage of all those new rebates and incentives from the state to go electric with your lawn and garden equipment or even your car. Ozone is the Front Range's biggest air quality issue and a leading cause of respiratory problems. And it's created from pollutants like car exhaust. Sign up for summer ozone alerts by texting Better Air CO to 21000 or visit simplestepsbetterair.org. That's simplestepsbetterair.org. This episode is brought to you by Friends of Chamber Music. If you're not familiar with chamber music, it's an intimate form of classical music performed by soloists or small ensembles. And for 70 years, Friends of Chamber Music has sought out the most talented performers around the world and brought them to perform here in Denver. Check out the full concert schedule at friendsofchambermusic.com and experience Denver's classical music scene for yourself. But it gets better. For this week only, we offer CityCast Denver listeners a special 20% discount on single tickets. Please use the code FCMST20 on the promotions tab on the ticketing page. That's FCMST20. Learn more at the link in our show notes or visit friendsofchambermusic.com today. Today on CityCast Denver. As the country reels from the attempted assassination of former President Trump over the weekend, local politicians are fighting for control of the narrative. Plus, Denver police have a new plan to address late-night violence in LoDo. Producer Paul Caroli and I break down these stories and respond to a listener's fiery hot take on public bathrooms. Today is Tuesday, July 16th. I'm Bree Davies, and here's what Denver's talking about. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, Bree.
So before we get started, let's talk about our ultimate Colfax playlist.
And what do you mean by that?
We're making one, right?
Absolutely.
What is the Colfax playlist? What's going on? Why are we talking about Colfax?
Well, all week we're talking about Colfax in partnership with our friends at the Colfax Avenue Business Improvement District. Shout out Frank and Danon. And Frank had this amazing idea when we started talking about this, about like, what is the music that just says Colfax to you? And I think it's probably a little bit different for everybody.
Yes.
But I think it's also a very, like a strong core idea that you can relate to. You know I have my things. I was just driving on Colfax over the weekend.
As the country reels from the attempted assassination of former President Trump over the weekend,
where he has a duet with Bruce Springsteen. And I was like, gosh, this hot summer day,
Plus,
listen
Denver
to this
police
country
have a new
music.
plan to address late-night violence in LoDo.
I like that.
Producer
So
Paul
it can
Crowley and
really
I
be
break down
interpreted
these
many ways,
stories
is also
and
what you're
respond to a
saying. Because
listener's
I'm thinking
fiery
about the
hot
feelings
take
I
on
have
public
about
restrooms.
Colfax are directly related to
my teenagerhood, cruising up and down the strip on the weekends with my friends. So like my playlist is going to be like the Loonies, I Got 5 on it, Warren G and Nate Dogg Regulate, like songs that you used to cruise to. But it really can be anything that elicits a feeling for you about this strip.
And we want to make one giant playlist.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about it later in the week. So if you all have one, have a song, a couple of songs, write in, let us know. And why? Why does it say Colfax to you? I want to hear stories. I want to hear feelings. Leave us a voicemail. Send us a text to 720-500-5418. The ultimate Colfax playlist hotline is open at 720-500-5418.
As the country reels from the attempted assassination of former President Trump over the weekend, at citycast.fm. Again, if you've got links to the song too, even better. But yeah, tell us a little story. Tell us why it matters to you, and it may end up on our country reels from the attempted assassination of former President Trump over the weekend. Okay, let's start with the news. I mean, we have to talk about this. Plus, Denver police have a new plan to address late-night violence in LoDo. Producer Paul Caroli and I break down these stories and respond to a listener's fiery hot take on public bathrooms. Paul, what were members of the Colorado GOP saying? Like, was there anybody standing out saying anything this weekend?
Well, I mean, to start, I think we just have to say this was a historic moment.
Yes.
Kind of an unprecedented situation.
Absolutely.
I don't know about you, but I have been doom scrolling on election news for weeks already. And then when this hit on Saturday, my jaw dropped. I just thought,
I listened to every news podcast I could find this morning to get a handle on
the historical precedence of this, just to contextualize it a little bit.
And honestly, there's not much. Like I was reading about the Reagan assassination attempt, which happened just 70 days after he took office. I didn't know that. I had heard about it, but this guy, John Hinckley Jr., just like came up to him outside a hotel and tried to shoot him. It was like 5 feet away. Totally different situation. And the political context, he had just been elected president. He wasn't running for president. And so like some people say that perhaps that galvanized some support for him. And when he came back from it, he was able to, he did get a bump in the polls, Reagan did. And maybe he used that to like, implement his policy program that he ran on. But in this situation, Trump is running for president. Yes. We still have a few months out. And we got the Republican National Convention this week.
Happening right now.
I mean, and also Trump himself, like the way he responded to it, I think we've all seen the photo now, but just even in the moment of like this defiant raising of his fist from this crowd of Secret Service agents, like what a visceral reaction. I'm still processing it. I'm sure everybody out there is still processing it too. But clearly a lot of our local leaders are trying to spin it in their own way and trying to make their own points on it.
I think that's the interesting part here, though, is that the internet changes things versus the Reagan era response. And, now people can react in real time and we can all see what they're saying and thinking and feeling, especially elected officials.
So do you want to start with the Dems or the Republicans?
Let's start with the GOP.
Okay. Well, I think the most interesting response came from our previous... I don't know how to talk about her anymore after doing this whole project.
I know what you mean.
On Lauren Boebert that we did before her primary. And
but she's the first voice I heard on this from the Colorado GOP.
Yes, she's undeniably one of perhaps the leading Republican figure in Colorado. She is going to win re-election almost certainly in November, but not totally re-election because it's a new district. It's congressional district 4, the Eastern Plains. And she's a bit of a fire starter. And she did it again. Just hours after the assassination attempt in Pennsylvania, Kyle Clark, our friend of the show at 9 News, got her on the phone and asked her what she thought. And she said, quote, "I do believe that Joe Biden is responsible for the shooting."
Wow.
Which was quite a statement. She was talking about this rhetoric that the Democrats and Biden have been using about like how Trump is an existential threat to democracy and like how he represents a rise of fascism. And so, that's the point she was making. And that has been kind of a popular point for a lot of Republicans across the country just in the last couple of days is they're pointing to these comments that Biden made in what Axios Denver said was a private fundraising call. I need to look more into that. But apparently Biden made these comments where he said, "We're done talking about the debate. It's time to put Trump in a bullseye."
Oh, I didn't see that. Ooh.
Which...
I mean, this argument to me is interesting because both sides use this argument that words matter.
100%.
Right? They use these arguments when it matters for them. And so right now, Republicans are really leaning on this. Words matter. What Democrats say matter. And Democrats would turn around and say the same thing about what words by the GOP have maybe, quote unquote, incited as well. So,
I don't know. Do you see like she has a point though about like the general atmosphere right now? There's these heightened tensions. Do you see that? Had you been feeling that?
Not any more than the rest of this election. I guess I would say not really.
Honestly, me too. If anything, the tension in those previous few weeks was within the Democratic Party.
Yeah, for sure.
Fighting about whether or not Biden should stay in the race.
Fighting within our own parties for sure. Yeah, this is flimsy to me because it's just a tactic that both sides use. So.
This episode is brought to you by the Colfax Avenue Business Improvement District. Because this weekend is Colfax's annual Independence Day, celebrating Colfax's many local independent businesses. And it's not just one day, it's a whole weekend of fun up and down East Colfax. The celebration kicks off on July 18th with a big party that you can attend for free. Join us at the Colfax Indie Bash for a live taping of CityCast Denver, as well as more free entertainment, food from local faves, a character artist, belly dancing, and a killer DJ. Then, all weekend long, more than 30 businesses and creators will be offering special goods and deals. Just look for the teal Colfax Avenue flag and mention Independence Day, and they'll hook you up. Find the flag, choose your own adventure, and make a day or a weekend of it. The Colfax Indie Bash is free to attend, but we hope you RSVP because space is limited. Find all the details in our show notes and online at colfaxav.com. That's colfaxav.com. This episode is brought to you by the University of Denver. The University of Denver has launched a new executive certificate in affordable housing, which is so cool because Denver needs affordable housing and smart people to figure out how to build more of it. Participants in the program will learn all the complexities of affordable housing development and gain the practical skills necessary to work in this specialized sector. And this is a major issue in communities all across the country where housing prices are out of control. This new program from DU is for people who want to help tackle this pressing issue head on. It's designed to upskill professionals working in industries such as real estate, development, planning, law, architecture, social work, and more. But anyone with a bachelor's degree can apply. And DU is the place to go for this type of education. It's a frontrunner in academic programs focused on research and service for the public good. Courses are primarily available online with in-person intensives at the beginning and end, and they have generous scholarship opportunities to offset the program cost. Applications are due on July 31st, 2024. Apply now at du.edu/affordable housing certificate. That's du.edu/affordable housing certificate. Okay, well, what about the Dems? Who are we hearing from in Colorado?
Well, the Dems also interesting. President Biden led the way on Saturday. He condemned the violence, called for an end to this kind of like political attack. But there was one local figure who did not choose to toe that line, and that was Representative Stephen Woodrow, who represents parts of Denver in the state legislature. He's a leader in the Democratic Party at the legislature. He's been there a long time.
Yeah.
But he ended up deleting his account on X after one of his posts got picked up by libs of TikTok.
I mean, that's kind of like once you get there, there's no going back for you.
Yeah. But the post in question, he says, quote, "The last thing America needed was sympathy for the devil. But here we are." Again, this was just hours after the assassination attempt, before anyone really knew anything about what had happened.
And then he deleted his Twitter account.
Fully deleted his account.
X account, yes.
Probably a smart move. Maybe a smart move from everybody.
There's no winning or coming back from, that comment in terms of winning. I'm saying, like, there's no, what do you say? And then he did. He reached out, or CPR spoke with him, I guess, via text.
Yeah, CPR texted him. He had a comment to our Colorado Public Radio. He wrote, quote, "My message, as inarticulate as it was, is that acts of violence like this are awful and only make it more likely that Trump now wins. We must always resolve our differences peacefully at the ballot box, not through violence. I know people are hurting and apologize that my words caused additional pain."
Yeah, when I saw that, I thought also, like, someone died at this rally that was not the president.
Just an innocent bystander.
Yeah, someone who was he's protecting his family. And several people were sent to the hospital. So I could imagine being his family or people close to him seeing that and thinking, really? This is the stance that a elected official is going to take in this moment when my family member died?
It's a hard thing. I have to say, I was talking to people just in my personal life, liberals who expressed similar sentiments. I don't think that was so uncommon on Saturday.
Yeah.
I think we got to be honest with ourselves about that. It's a visceral moment. This is a guy who liberals have hated for 10 years almost.
Yeah.
Just he's been public enemy number one for liberals, this former president of ours. And I know people were. It's a hard thing to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think to me, this just speaks more to the Wild West that the internet is. And it's really how you choose to use it. And again, this access that we have to people like politicians can be a good thing and can be a bad thing. And also it requires us as human beings to make decisions in the moment that maybe should require some restraint. I don't know, or some deeper thinking.
You're saying don't post?
Kind of, or at least give it a little bit of time before you post something, because that could reverberate forever. And it might be just how you felt in the moment. Like you said, Paul, a lot of folks you talked to maybe felt a similar way. And I'm not saying how I feel either way about this. I just know from being a person on the internet for the last 20 years, you can make a lot of regretful decisions in
10 seconds.
100%.
So
when I was reading about this over the weekend, I thought back to this moment. Just a quick story, but when I was in college, I studied abroad in Jordan. It was a program, a lot of young American kids, and the kind of kids who are interested in going to the Middle East are, future CIA agents, white like me, Jewish kids who, are interested in the conflict with Israel, and Arab Americans, pretty diverse group. And I remember the morning that Osama bin Laden was killed. Because there was a group of us living in this one apartment building, and I was down in the lobby early, and I just got to see each kid come down and get into a taxi and then have their own reaction. I would have a little interaction with each person. And the first guy that came down, white guy like me, and he was like, "Hell yeah, we got him." And he high-fived me.
Whoa.
And I remember that was where I was emotionally in that moment too. And then a few minutes later, this girl that I had kind of been seeing a little bit, she was a Quaker. I don't know if she would identify as that now, but she had just totally the opposite reaction. She was just talking about this is a human life.
They're very nonviolent. That's a nonviolent group.
Exactly. And that was her response, was I can't celebrate this. This is a political act, but this is a person that died. And as soon as I talked to her, I so regretted the first interaction, the high five. And I have my whole life. And I can imagine that's how Woodrow's feeling right now. Well,
at least you didn't make a TikTok in that moment of yourself being excited about a high five. I'm not to make this about ourselves, but I lost a friend of 10 years over one tweet. So it is, I can see when you have power in a stage that a lot of politicians do, that can reverberate instantly, as we've seen. And I don't know. It's just,
I'm going to be thinking about Representative Woodrow a little differently.
Yeah, for sure. The next few days, I think we're going to see more and more and more, and it's going to inform more of what we see here. But we have to talk about this Denver Post headline in the wake of this shooting.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So I was at King Soopers. That's where I first saw it. It was in the newsstands as I was doing my groceries. And it did catch my eye that they chose this headline for this particular event. The headline, the front page of the Denver Post on Sunday morning was, "Gunman dies in attack."
Nothing about who was shot. This is wild to me.
It was a curious choice. Personally, I would have led with something about former President Trump or assassination attempt in Pennsylvania. And former Senator Cory Gardner called this out online. He was like, this is what the Denver Post chooses to focus on in this moment. And
it was an editorial choice for sure. And also we're in an era of headline only reading for folks. So you're sending a very explicit message in one sentence.
Do you think it really matters, though, what's on the front page of the Denver Post right now?
I think it circulated on Twitter for sure. That's more likely than someone picking up the newspaper or seeing it like you did at the grocery store. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's a less common occurrence these days. And that is a good question, though, how that might go over 20 years ago. In a headline like that, where again, there was no other extraneous conversation happening elsewhere that you could tap into. Yeah,
20 years ago, that would have been the first thing people saw about it. That might have been how people learned about an event like this.
Absolutely.
But in their case, Sunday morning, that's more than 12 hours after the attack. That's probably the second or third comment. They don't have the same obligation. Anyway, I reached out to our friends at the Denver Post for comment, see how they think about that. Because it is kind of interesting how you choose a headline, especially for an event like this.
Well, and we know what goes into choosing headlines. These are not just one person picks it and it goes up there. I
know how we pick them.
We spend a lot of time.
Yeah, we brainstorm a bunch of options and we finesse it. And
we talk about what matters in it or what information we're trying to get across to try to get people to listen to the show to hear more about what we're talking about. And I wonder what that looks like for a newsroom. Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, we're going to be talking to Representative Diana DeGette later this week. We had her booked anyway to talk about the whole Biden campaign situation. But now that this has happened, we're obviously going to have to get into this too. So if there's anything you all want to know, let us know. You know how to get in touch. It's the phone number, voicemails, texts, emails, 720-500-5418. But yeah, if you have a specific question for our Congresswoman in this historic moment, please pass it along.
This episode is brought to you by Denver Botanic Gardens, Chatfield Farms.
Because it's time for the Garden's annual Lavender Festival. Coming up on the weekend of July 20th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Saturday and Sunday, you can immerse yourself in more than 2,000 lavender plants at Chatfield Farms Lavender Garden. It's a family-friendly celebration of all things lavender, with live music, local artisans and lavender products, and demos in the blacksmith shop and dye garden. I mean, I bet you could get lavender soaps, lavender lotions, lavender candles. Fresh lavender candles, you can't beat that. Like a fresh made one. I'm also curious about what they do in the dye garden. That sounds awesome. And if you've never been to the Botanic Gardens at Chatfield Farms, you've got to go. It's right off C470 and Wadsworth Boulevard in Littleton. They'll have plenty of food and drink vendors, as well as barrel train rides, lawn games, and crafts for the kids. Tickets must be purchased in advance at botanicgardens.org. That's botanicgardens.org to purchase your tickets for the Lavender Festival today. This episode is brought to you by Pine Melon, the farmer's market delivered. Miss the farmer's market this weekend? Don't fret. Pine Melon has got you covered, delivering Colorado's freshest local produce straight to your doorstep. Pine Melon is a next-generation grocery delivery app that partners with over 200 local farmers, ranchers, and producers in Colorado. With a mission to transform Denver's food system, empower local makers, and promote community well-being, they make supporting local both easy and rewarding. Enjoy high-quality meats, eggs, and dairy from small local farms, as well as a wide variety of pantry staples, all delivered straight to you. The best part? Pine Melon offers same-day delivery to Denver and Boulder within a 2-hour window. No subscription necessary. Support local today and use promo code CityCastDenver for $75 off your first delivery at pinemelon.com. Enjoy the best of the farmers market, even when you can't make it there yourself. Okay, we're back. Talking about LoDo.
Yeah, our next story here is this persistent conversation really for years here in Denver. Violence, safety issues, downtown, late at night on the weekends, specifically around let out time. 2 a.m. when the bars let out, crowds of drunk people pour into the streets. A couple summers ago, there was this shooting. Police shot into a crowd. Very, big headline, but it seems like a chronic problem. And the Denver police just implemented a new policy this past weekend that they hope is going to help. Bree, what's happening?
Yeah, so Denverite reported that the city's coordinating with rideshare companies to create these designated pickup and drop-off zones. So they can move too. That's what I found interesting was based on events happening in LoDo and the ballpark area during a weekend, these areas might move. So they're not permanently like at this corner or at this corner. Like for instance, last weekend was the Billy Joel concert at Coors Field. So there may be one closer to Coors Field versus something that's happening more around the bar area. And so basically, Uber and Lyft drivers will not be permitted to pick up or drop off riders between Blake and Larimer and 18th and 21st between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m., which is literally where probably most people were getting picked up. And so they're creating these specific areas that hopefully, I guess the point of this is there, again, you kind of alluded to this, but dealing with this sort of age-old LoDo, as long as LoDo has been a thing, Lower Downtown has been called LoDo, there's been this problem where after the bars let out, there is just these groups of people. Again, a lot of them are inebriated. It can lead to things like fights, gun violence. I've talked about this before, but my mom's worked in an ER here for 50 years. She's like, every weekend, we just see young people getting beat up for no reason and sent to the ER. So this is an effort to, I think, disperse it, not have it concentrated in these areas, and get folks out of the area as quick as possible is how I took it.
Now, what do you make of the fact that they chose to work with rideshare companies here versus having more officers on the streets?
I think they will. There wasn't a lot of detail on that. I think there will be more of a police presence, but I think what they were just trying to figure out is like, I mean, this made me, I'd never used an Uber in this situation because Ubers didn't exist when I was downtown in part of these crowds 20 years ago, But like, I imagine it's pretty chaotic for the Lyft and Uber drivers already. And so maybe establishing something a little bit more uniform, like when I think about when the Grand Doozy Festival was happening over in Ruby Hill, they had a specific area set up for the weekend for Uber and Lyft to come to these specific points. Because otherwise you would have Uber and Lyft drivers swarming these parks trying to find people, blocking traffic. And I assume it's like kind of just to streamline it, to get folks out. But I think that they just went with what they know people use most. People aren't using transportation the most. Hopefully people aren't driving that much to get out of LoDo. Maybe Uber and Lyft seem to be the things that were getting the most people. So this is how they're getting the people out.
Yeah, my take on this was I did not see any mention of increased patrol because I know that the police are already, they say, understaffed.
Yes.
Not up to the force that they're authorized.
Where were we? We were hearing that from someone else too. I'm trying to remember, but there was like a specific instance where there were just less police. But yes.
Well, actually, separately, just happens to be happening now at the same time. The police are doing this 1 month push on expired license plates. So that's where they're spending their time right now.
Oh my gosh.
So I feel like this rideshare thing is like, I don't know if the rideshare companies were the ones that reached out to ask for a more streamlined system or like some help there, or if the police were just looking for an easy win and we're like, this would cost us nothing.
Totally. And put the onus on the drivers, which I don't love. I feel like I'd love to hear from some Uber and Lyft drivers. Does this make your job easier on the weekends? Do you just avoid this area and not service it because it's too crazy? Like, how will this work out for the drivers? Because that ultimately, to me, is who's taking on the burden. They're dealing with a lot of stuff, I would imagine. I mean, drunk people in LoDo.
I know we've got some Lyft and Uber drivers in our audience right now. So yeah,
please
if you have that experience, let us know.
Yeah. Is this better for you? Does it make your job easier? Is it harder? Is the communication clear? Because like I said, they're changing. It can change every weekend. So I just wonder how that's going to be for the drivers. I do just want to say though, too, in context that as long as I was of age and a little bit younger to be going downtown. So late 90s, early 2000s.
You're saying you went out partying underage?
Maybe with my fake ID. I don't know. Maybe I went to Heartthrob with my fake ID and Lucky Star with my fake ID. The I-Beam, whatever. But it was the same problem, right?
Yeah.
It was similar issues. The issue when I was a kid or when I was a teenager in particular was cruising. There was a lot of cruising happening downtown. So they started to crack down on cruising. So we would have to go to Westminster to cruise. And so, but the violence thing or at least the fighting, the rowdiness was still there. And the answer back in the day was A, to cut down on cruising, and B, to shut down hip hop clubs. This was a Denver thing. My two best girlfriends in college, Emily and Rosita, were bartenders at a bunch of these bars downtown. And they worked at a bar called Beyond. And then there was a situation, not even in the bar, adjacent to the bar. And the city shut it down and they couldn't reopen as a hip hop club. So they reopened as a country bar. And
interesting.
So that was one approach in the 90s and early 2000s. I'm curious if this approach does better.
I am too. And I kind of want to ask the mayor about this later in the week.
Oh, we should.
There have been so many proposals about what to do about this over the years. Like I know in the state legislature a couple of years ago, they were talking about like, what if we staggered let out times? Like what if individual bars could choose, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Or what if there was no let out time at all? Just let them stay open. There's lots of interesting ideas on how to fix this problem. But the late night violence is certainly an issue, especially this time of year. And
because we had this shooting recently at Federales, right?
Yeah, we should talk about that.
In Rhino.
It was a Wednesday, and not in this particular district, a little bit down the street in Rhino.
But you were in this area recently, right, Paul?
I was not there that night. I have read some accounts of what happened. It seems like there was a young man, about 14 years old, who had a gun and shot and killed a security guard, actually, at Federales. So, yeah, not sure what the situation is. I think the suspect is at large. But, yeah, Federales, I have been by there. It's it's not my favorite place, but I've been by there. I like Rhino late on weekends, and it's really quite busy. It's like the spot.
That's what I kind of was gathering too. Was like this is kind of the new LoDo.
Yeah, that's what I think so. But on Friday night it was totally closed, shut down. I don't know if it was like a mandated closure from the police or something after the shooting, or if it was just a voluntary
regroup. And
let's give the staff some time off because their colleague was tragically killed.
That's too. And just like thinking about, again, having friends that worked in this industry, in this environment, it's really stressful. So I imagine, well, I hope the best for them, but.
Yeah, me too. Tough situation.
Yeah, remains to be seen. We'll see how it works. And also, too, if you're just someone that goes down, or maybe you're a bartender downtown or a security guard, or maybe you're someone that frequents it, will this experience change things? Do you think that this is going to change the issues at hand? We always love to hear from you, our brilliant and hilarious listeners, about the things you care about. And so every Tuesday, we try to share a comment or answer one of your questions that's come through the CityCast Denver hotline. What do we have this week, Paul?
Looks like we got a voicemail from John H.
Hey, CityCast team. This is your friend John Hyde from Northeast Park Hill. Thanks for your episode on public restrooms. It just made me want to share my hot take. If I was ever on Subway Takes, that great show in New York, the hot take that I would rant about is that if you serve more than beverages that are bigger than 12 ounces, I think you should have to have a public restroom. I think it's really weird that you can sell a Big Gulp and then tell people they can't use the bathroom. Anyway, you guys are good. Bye.
Yeah, that's a funny take.
It is a funny take.
If you break it, you bought it. It's kind of the attitude.
If we fill you up, we should allow you to go to the bathroom, I guess. That's an interesting one because he said Big Gulps, and I think for a long time, I don't know if this is the case anymore, 7-Elevens were the world's public bathrooms. So I've used many a 7-Eleven bathroom, but that seems like a pretty stressful thing in this day and age. That's an interesting take.
Yeah, I love it. Thanks for calling in, John.
Well, thanks for joining me, Paul.
See you next time, Bree.
That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. If you enjoyed this show, why not take a minute to tell Representative Stephen Woodrow about us? Rate the show wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe to our morning newsletter and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye-bye.